Welcome to today's session. In this session, we are going to look at a phenomena which is known as the polar vortex. Meteorologists believe that this phenomena of polar vortex is only responsible for the bitter cold that is prevalent in parts of central and eastern United States this week. Because of the bitter cold, residents were forced to stay indoors, schools and businesses were closed, and flights were cancelled. Unfortunately, some deaths also were reported. So let's try and understand this phenomena in lot more detail, and let's get started. Now let's understand what this polar vortex is. Let's look at the nature of the polar vortex. It is described as a whirling cone of low pressure. See, this is what it is. It is a whirling cone of low pressure over the poles that is the strongest in winter months. Okay, and why is it stronger in the winter months? Because there is an increased temperature contrast between the polar region and the mid latitudes such as the US and Europe. Okay, so first thing you need to remember is that the polar vortex, it is a whirling cone of low pressure which is strongest in the winter months, and it is strongest in the winter months because of the increased temperature contrast between the polar region and the mid latitudes. Now let's understand how this polar vortex actually works. Look at the first point. The polar vortex spins in the stratosphere. See, stratosphere is quite up above the Earth's surface. See, if you look at the surface of this Earth, this is the Arctic, this is the North Pole, okay? The polar vortex is quite above in the sky. It is in the stratosphere, okay? It's not near the Earth's surface. It is quite high above. Usually, when the vortex is strongest, cold air is less likely to plunge deep into North America or Europe. See, when this vortex is very strong, no, the cold air is only circulating here and it doesn't move down to the mid latitudes. Okay, it is actually protecting North America and Europe from the winter cold air. Alright, in other words, it forms a wall that protects the mid latitudes from cold Arctic air. Okay, the cold air keeps circulating here itself and doesn't come down towards the mid latitudes. But what happens sometimes is that the polar vortex is disrupted and weakens due to wave energy propagating upwards from the lower atmosphere. When this happens, the stratosphere warms sharply in an event known as the sudden stratospheric warming, okay, in just a few days, miles above the Earth's surface. Now let's understand this with the help of a diagram. This is the Earth's surface. When the polar vortex is strong, it looks like this. Okay, when there is a disruption occurring in the polar vortex, it will weaken. Okay, this might happen because of wave energy propagation, and when there is disruption, no, there will be stratospheric warming, and after the disruption it will look something like this. So this is the strong polar vortex and this is the weak polar vortex. Now the warming weakens the polar vortex, shifting its location somewhat south of the pole, in some instances splitting the vortex up into sister vortices. Now look at the diagram. The strong polar vortex looks like this. But after the warming and after the weakening, this is what will happen. There will be a splitting up of the vortex. It will be pushed downwards, southwards, and it will split into sister vortices. Okay, there is a splitting if you can observe. Now let us look at the effects of the polar vortex. The first effect is that there can be both sudden as well as delayed effects. The sudden effect can be seen in the US in form of the extreme weather, extreme cold. That is the sudden impact, and the delayed effects we'll see a little later. They can be seen in USA and in different parts of northern and western parts of Europe. The second effect will be that there will be stratospheric warming, like I already mentioned. It will lead to warm Arctic and changes in troposphere as well. The third effect, the warmer Arctic will favor severe winter in northern hemisphere mid latitudes, including the eastern USA. So these were some basics about the polar vortex. With this we have come to the end of today's session. Here we have mentioned a few model questions. Please answer them. See you in the next session. Thank you.